Is the game dying? Did Season 3 kill the finals? Those are just a few questions amongst many people's minds, right? Especially amongst the older player base that has been playing the game since the beta, right? So in today's video, what we are actually going to do is we are going to evaluate how well the company, aka Nexon and Embark in this case, are doing as a whole, and whether the game in specific, the finals, micro-focusing on just the finals as a product, is actually doing well financially. So actually what we're going to do is we are going to look at the Q2 finances. And basically, if you don't know what all this is, I made a previous video about this looking at Q1 in 2024. So I'm going to link it down in the video's description. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into the video. I don't want to waste any of your guys' time. So the first step is to just go to this website over here, and basically if you go here, you have a few things that you can click on. So you have Nexon's releases earnings for second quarter 2024, you have the investor presentation, and you have the earnings letter. Basically what these are, it just shows everyone who's reading the products in regards to Nexon, how well the game is doing financially, that sort of jazz, whether their games are financially feasible. So the first thing I have open over here is the investor presentation in Q2 of 2024. And basically what this is basically looks at the different games that Nexon, Embark, all their subsidiary companies have, and to kind of see as to whether their franchises and in general their games are doing really well. And it lists also the details in regards to those games, so you can see so much information over here. But since we're micro-focusing on just the finals, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type the finals at the top left-hand corner. You probably can't see it because my face is in the way, but I did type the finals. And if I just go and press on this button, you can see that we jumped to the finals over here. And you can basically see that in Q2 2024, North America and Europe, you can basically see that the finals was within the expected range, continuing to enhance the game experience through improvements in balance and game mode. So basically, the game actually did not perform so badly in terms of region, looking at just North America and Europe, and that it was actually performing according to Nexon's expectations, which is really good. Let's move on. Over here, if I type the finals again, you're going to see that the year-to-year growth driven by contributions from the finals as well as growth in MapleStory has been good as well. So the game has actually been improving their revenue in North America and Europe. Perfect. Let's move on. If we want to look at Japan, North America, and Europe, and the rest of the world, basically you can see that they expect to benefit from the finals in North America and Europe. So this is something that their expectations for Q3 of 2024, basically the last few periods of the year, obviously. And you can kind of see that this is what they have in store. That is what they are planning to do. And basically, if I go to the finals again, you can kind of see what their long-term vision is, and basically just an overview of how well the game has been performing this time around. The game was launched in December 2023. We're now in August, so the game's been out for a good 8 months now. You can kind of see the numbers. So the game was launched in December 2023. Number of downloads over 20 million worldwide. It's the first-person shooter featuring team-based shooting action that pushes environmental dynamicism, destruction, and player freedom to their limits. And basically, Nexon and Embark Studios announced agreements with their China publishing partner, Tencent, to develop new experiences specifically customized to appeal to millions of players in China. This point right here, guys, is I think the most important point out of this entire presentation. And it is a point that you are going to see in all of the pages and all of the slides that we are going to be looking at. So let's look at the next document. The next document basically talks about Nexon releasing earnings for the second quarter of 2024. And again, in the top left corner, what I wrote is the finals. And if you just type the finals, the first part is just, Nexon, Embark Studios, and Tencent, which we have not heard of before, customizing the finals and arc raiders for Chinese players. So you can see that there's going to be an emphasis on trying to get new Chinese players into the game, through their partnership with Tencent, who personally I have not heard of, but apparently they're really huge, and it's something maybe that I can do in a future video once I learn more about them. Okay. And again, if you jump over to the finals, you can kind of see what they say. They basically say that ongoing adjustments to the game's balance and modes are designed to improve the player retention. And specifically, this brings me on to my next point. Guys, people don't get it. World Tour was adjusted the way it was this season because of one simple reason: player retention. Okay, why is World Tour a thing? You have to think about it this way. World Tour is as grindy and as boring and as stale as it can possibly be for one main reason. They want everyone in the community to be able to get these emerald rewards in quotation marks. And to be honest, anyone in the game can go and get those emerald rewards in quotation marks if they just play long enough, and that is exactly why they made World Tour the way it was. Previously, when you went and entered a ranked game, and you had to actually fight and win most of your games to reach diamond and reach the higher top 500 leaderboard ranks and that sort of stuff, it was really hard for a lot of the casual players who were pretty shit at the game, to try and like actually do something up there, you know what I mean? But now with World Tour, with consistency, with them being able to just consistently play the game, they can also get those rewards that are at the very end of the game. So that change was made to just retain as many players as they can. That is it. That is the bottom line, guys. And it's something that a lot of people just don't understand. They think that, oh, this was just made because Embark wanted to ruin their game. No, guys, it was for player retention. Trust me. You know what I mean? Now, for me, I think Terminal Attack ranked mode is absolute horseshit. I, as a person, do not like it. I don't think that it has any place in the finals. Actually, it just does not make sense to me for it to be in the game. People enjoy it for what it is. That's on them. But now you guys kind of understand why they made World Tour the thing it is today. It's basically to try and get as many players in the game to continue playing the game for as long as a period as they can in Season 3. Which actually, looking at the numbers later on, you will understand that is exactly what has been happening. Okay, so let's continue. We've seen the finals over here, and if we go to the finals again, it's just another finals over here. So there's nothing else in regards to the finals in this page, so let's jump on to the next document. The next document is this one, and basically what it is, it's the earnings letter. And basically in the earnings letter, you're going to see a lot of different metrics relating to the revenue, operating costs, the profits that the company in general is doing as a whole. So again, if we go and type the finals, let's read what they are saying. You can see that the Q2 revenue of the finals came in line with the company's expectations. We will continue to improve the game experiences by making adjustments to balances and modes. Okay, again, and if we jump over here, you can see something that we have not seen before and that you are going to understand right now. Okay, if you continue reading this, basically you're going to see a couple of different things. You're going to see that over here, year over year, MAUs, of Dungeon and Fighter in China, FC Online, and Maple Story in Korea were down, which were offset by the finals, contributing to this year's performance. We are going to talk about what MAUs are very soon and what PUs are very soon. So just stay with me. You probably are very confused, but this is a very important point to make. And again, the finals is over here as a word. And if you read over here, it says year over year, it was down primarily to Dungeon Fighter in China, quarter over quarter. PUs decreased to the finals of a typical weak seasonality. And again, we are going to be talking about what seasonality is actually, and how it affects the game industry, and how it affects their products, and how much money a company can make in general. Again, this is them looking at Q3, so in the future, what the future holds. They're basically saying that we will continue to focus on improving the game experiences from the previous quarter. They don't talk much more about anything other than that. So let's see what all of this means now. So guys, if we look at the Steam charts, and we just go back to 1 year ago, naturally you can see that the game was out in December 2023, and over time the game's just been declining, which is very understandable actually, because all games will decline over time, you know what I mean? And you will see that in general they've had like 40k players the first 2-3 months, and then it decreased to around 27k players, 20k players, 1350, and now they are hovering around the 15k range. That's the range that they're hovering on. And you have to remember that this is Steam charts, so this is only just for PC players only. And you can kind of see that the gain that they have had in players over time. So for example, in July 2024, they had a minus 3,000 approximately gain, which was a minus 20% from the previous month, which was June. And you can see that basically so far in August they've actually been regaining players, so they've gotten a few more players. And I think the reason why we are regaining players now again is because of the Emerald announcement, because Emerald is out now, and it came out in August, and people are now jumping right back into the game and they're playing the game again. Again, all of these changes and all of these things and the timings for why they're opening up Emerald now The reason why they're opening it up now is because they want to retain as many players again as possible. They want as many players to jump into the game again. They want to be like, oh my god, there's a new update in the game. I'm going to open up the finals again. I'm going to download the finals again. And I'm going to jump into the game again. And I'm going to play it. And all that sort of jazz, okay? So let's just jump into all of this. This is a document that I prepared. Hopefully it's going to make sense to all of you guys. What you guys are going to see over here are three main words, okay? So these words in green: revenue, operating income, net income. So again, I went through these words in my previous video, but I think it's just better to go through these words one by one right now so you understand what they are and how they mean to the industry and what they relate to in terms of everything, okay? So the first thing you have is revenue, and basically the definition of revenue is also known as the sales or turnover, is the total amount of money generated by the sale of goods or services related to the company's primary operations. So this is an example from Nexon, okay? And this example from Nexon, you have to remember, it includes all of Nexon's games, okay? Not just the finals. This is a very important point to make. And this is for quarter one of 2024. I'm not talking about this current quarter that we are looking at right now, okay? You can see that an example from Nexon, for example, is they reported a revenue of approximately 898 million. This figure represents all the money brought in from their gaming operations and related services before any expenses are deducted. So you can assume that this is all of the money that is cash flowing into the company without any expenses being removed yet. Okay, let's jump into operating income. So what is operating income? Operating income is also known as operating profit or operating earnings. It is basically the profit earned from a company's core business operations, and it's calculated by subtracting the operating expenses. So basically you have the wages, the cost of goods, administrative expenses, rent, all that sort of stuff from the revenue. And basically the formula for it is you have operating income equaling revenue minus operating expenses. And another example from Nexon, again, this is quarter one, so this is not the period that we are currently looking at right now. Nexon reported an operating income of approximately 319 million. So this indicates how much profit Nexon has made from its operations after accounting for the costs directly associated with running the business, but not before taxes and interests. So this is a very, very, very important point, okay? So you can assume that this includes all of the expenses that you have, but does not include taxes or interests, okay? Because again, taxes and interests are when you include them in your costs, okay? This is what's going to give you your net income, okay? So your net income is the most important number out of all of these three words, okay? And what is it? Basically, net income is also known as net profit or net earnings. It is the total profit of a company after all expenses have been deducted from the revenue. This includes operating expenses, interests, taxes, and any other expenses. So the net income is basically your operating income, which is this, you know, take away interests plus taxes plus other expenses. So you can see that their net income was approximately 262 million. So this is the amount of profit that they have made as a company, remaining after all of the costs, including non-operating expenses like interest and tax, have been deducted. Okay, again, this is for quarter one. So let's look at quarter two and let's understand how well the numbers are doing in relation to quarter one, because I think that's reasonably fair. We want to try and understand how well the game is doing, right? So let's jump in. All of these things that you see over here were discussed in my previous video. I'm just going to keep it over here, but I'm not going to discuss them in this video. Again, if you want to watch this, all me talking about all of the numbers from the last period, you can press on the link down in the description, okay? But what we are going to jump into is this, okay? And this is what is important. So this gives us the juice of how well the game is doing as a whole, okay? So you've got in quarter two, basically what I'm doing is in quarter two, I'm kind of looking at season 3 versus quarter 1, season 2 of the finals, which I talk about over here. But to be honest, you have to understand that in quarter 2 and quarter 1, they're talking about all their games in general. So it's not just the finals. You have Maple Story, you have their other games as well, Dungeon and whatever it's called. You have the first Descendant now and all that sort of jazz. So yeah, let's look into their finances. So in quarter 1 of this year, the first quarter of this year, this is how well their financial performance was. So their revenue was approximately $896 million, $373 million for their operating income. And again, their net income, which is their total profits as a whole, $292 million, okay? Let's look at quarter 2. So their financial performance for this time around. The revenue is $882 million, okay? Although it has decreased from the last period, it is up by 30% year over year. So what this means is actually they have made an increase of 30% from the last year. The last year they had 30% less than this number, okay? You have to like just consider it in a year on a year basis, if that makes sense sometimes. Again, the operating income over here, $325 million, which again, if you compare it to this time around, actually it decreased, right? But again, it's 64% higher than what it was last year. And that makes sense, you know, you're gonna have a lot more expenses, but at the same time, you're generating more revenue, so it's gonna increase, you know? And again, since all of these numbers are increasing, your net income is going to increase. Okay, so again, if you look at the net income, $288 million approximately, which again is lower than the net income that you have over here, and it's up by 63% year over year. Okay, so in general, you can see that this time around, the finances have not been doing as well as last quarter. Okay, in general, and you can kind of see it in the table that I have over here if you're very curious. It's a table that I just quickly drafted up myself. And here are the key metrics. Okay, so the revenue decreased slightly from quarter 1 to quarter 2, dropping approximately 14.4 million. Okay, again, operating income, sorry, this should not be revenue, but this should be operating income, saw a decrease of 47.5 million, and over here a decrease in net income of approximately $4 million. So they lost approximately $4.3 million in profits over the past 2 periods. You can kind of consider it that way. So in summary, these are, you know, the points that have to be made. You saw that the revenue had a slight decline in quarter 2 2024 compared to quarter 1 2024. But why is that happening? We have to kind of like look at the reasons as to why this is happening. This could be to the seasonality effects mentioned, especially with the normalization of revenues from key franchises like Dungeon and Fighter Mobile after an exceptionally strong launch. You also have to remember that nowadays, you know, okay, it's a summer season, right? And even though a lot of people are at home and they're relaxing and they're chilling because they're done with university, work, schooling, that sort of stuff, you have to also understand that a lot of people are on holiday and they're away from their computers. So naturally, you're going to have a decline of the player base, thus affecting the revenue that the game is having as a whole. Okay. Again, if you look at the operating income, it decreased more significantly, so approximately 13% in quarter 2 compared to quarter 1. This could be attributed to other costs, okay, so other costs that we don't see, including HR costs such as performance-based bonuses and marketing expenses, as well as higher platform fees and cloud service costs. Now, the marketing expenses point is very, very, very important to note, because Embark has used, I don't want to say wasted, but they've invested approximately $550,000 into marketing this game in just the early days of season 3. We don't know how much they've spent over the next upcoming days, but for example, I made a video about this, which was like 3-4 videos ago, where I talk about the numbers specifically. They've made a heavy loss, I think, in terms of marketing, because although they've marketed the game so much, over time you can see actually that the player numbers have not improved that much. In June 2024, this is when you had Season 3 come out, okay? And you can see that even though they've invested so much in marketing and so many players did come back to the game, you know, after all of the marketing, you can see that still the game is losing a lot of players over time, and the average monthly player base is going down. Again, over the last 30 days over here, I'm expecting to see a little peak again, and the reason for that is because Emerald just came out. Emerald came out, a lot of people are going to be jumping into the game, and you're going to see a lot of average daily players coming into the game just to try and get the Emerald rank now, and it's going to keep going until the end of the season, I expect it. So you can see this is probably going to increase over the next coming days. Okay, so that's very, very important. For the net income, we had a slight decline over the past 2 periods, which mirrors the trend seen on operating income. So despite the strong performance in revenues, the increased costs and expenses in quarter 2 likely affected profitability, which makes a lot of sense. So in conclusion, Nexon's overall performance in quarter 2 was strong, driven by key franchises and the new IP launches. IP, by the way, refers to this game, which was launched over here. Let me just show you. So it refers to this, a new existing IP, which refers to the game that was just recently released, the First Descendant. Sorry, I keep saying the Last Descendant, but it's the First Descendant. My bad. Actually, it was released in July 2024, so they've had a lot of marketing put into the game to try and give it the most successful launch possible, And yeah, if we continue, you can see that there was a slight decline in revenue, operating income, and net income, primarily due to the higher costs, which makes sense because a lot of money is being used in marketing as well, and the normalization of revenue after a strong Q1. So despite these challenges, the company continues to show robust year-over-year growth, which we have seen in the numbers over here. When I say 30% year-over-year, 60% year-over-year, actually year-over-year the company is doing well, okay? So that's what's very important. And despite these challenges, so especially in its mobile and international markets, it's doing quite well. So now the last point, I guess, is how is the finals particularly doing after season 3? I think this is why everyone is here. We want to know how well the game has been doing in general. So we're gonna jump into these key metrics. They're very important to note. For Q2, Nexon's game for finals performed steadily, with revenue aligning with the company's expectations. So this is a very important point. The company had specific expectations, specific numbers they wanted to achieve, and the game apparently achieved these objectives, which is perfect. However, there was a decrease in MAUs and PUs. So what are MAUs and PUs? Well, MAUs refers to monthly active users, which is basically this number, okay? So average monthly players, okay? It's the same exact thing, okay? And you've had a decrease in MAUs, which easily you can see it over here. It's been declining over past periods, okay? And paying users. Obviously, if you're going to have less monthly users in the game, you're going to have less paying users in the game over time, because you have less players. So that just makes sense. And it's important to note that this is happening for both PC and console games, including the finals, primarily due to typical weak seasonality. So again, we're blaming it on the fact that it's just a seasonality thing, it's just the summer. But to be honest, I just think a lot of players are also bored with like terminal attack. Me personally, I don't play the finals as much anymore because I have nothing to do, Okay, I'm gonna grind out this whole emerald rank thing, but as long as I'm just playing 2 matches a day, winning those 2 full tournaments a day, that's it for me. I just close the game again. And I think most players are kind of on that same mindset now, you know what I mean? So again, this impacted overall performance as the monthly active users dropped by 23%, so nearly a quarter over the quarter period. So basically from Q1 to Q2, you've lost approximately 25% of your players. And your paying users, you've lost approximately 16% of them, which is worrying, okay? So revenue for the finals was consistent with expectations, and while the game showed solid engagement, Nexon plans to continue improving the game experience by adjusting balances and modes. So that's something to look forward to in the future. We're going to adjust balances, we're going to adjust some modes, we're going to adjust some things to try and make the game as interesting as it could be. Despite this, the game contributed to a decrease in key metrics for PC and console performance. Again, this is the same point as the one that I had over here. And again, this is the very, very last important point. Nexon is also working with Tencent to develop new experiences for the finals tailored for the Chinese market, indicating a focus on future growth and expansion. So it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to come out of this, let's say, alliance with Tencent. And we're going to see how the game is going to improve as a whole, because we're going to see a lot of marketing specifically in China, I assume, where they're going to try and get as many new players as they can over there. It's going to be interesting. The game is really good. I just hope that they continue to work on it the way they currently are. It has a lot of potential, and I'm sure the game is going to do so much better in the upcoming quarters, as long as they just change a few things in the game. I hope you guys found all of this very informative. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry for all the rambling. I hope all this made so much sense. If you guys enjoyed the video, please drop me a sub. It took me some time to gather up all this information. It just means the world to me. All of your support is incredible. Peace out, homies. You're all amazing. Goodbye.